Should Christians care about the environment? Yeah, I know. Seems quite obvious, right? Like, should Christians care about the environment? Yeah, of course. Um, but I get the thinking behind the question because then it kind of puts into question God's sovereignty. The whole thinking is, well, if God is sovereign and if God is ultimately in control of Earth's preservation, why does it matter what we do as individuals? Why does it matter what I do? Because God is sovereign over all these things. God is ultimately in control of preserving the earth. So no matter what I do, it's not going to matter, right? And I think about this question, and scripture comes to mind. And I'm not saying at all that the scripture that I'm about to quote, Romans 6 verse 1, has anything to do with the environment or anything like that. That's not the point of the verse. But I'm just talking about the kind of mindset behind the question phrase. Because in Romans 6 verse 1, it says, Paul says, "What shall we say then? Shall we go on sinning so that grace may increase? By no means. We are those who have died to sin. How can we live in it any longer?" And so by Paul saying this, is he's making the assumption that some people might get this thought like, okay, if we're under grace and if salvation is by grace, and can't we go on living how we used to? Because regardless of what we do, God is ultimately sovereign, and we cannot lose our salvation. So why can't we go on and sin? And Paul urges with them and appeals to them and says, hey, didn't you die when Christ died? Aren't you a new creation? So even though we are under grace, that's not an excuse to go on sinning. Now we put away that sinful nature and we pursue even more so a righteous life. And so I think about that in terms of the question that has to do with, should Christians care about the environment and climate change, and if you believe in those kinds of things. But it's coming from like a similar mindset that, like, if you look at earth in terms of a gift, just like salvation was a gift in Paul's argument here in Romans 6 verse 1, the earth is a gift, and we're meant to steward it, and we're meant to look after it, and we're meant to just keep it as be as respectful to the earth as possible, right? And so if you look at the earth as a gift, then in that sense, yeah, God is ultimately in control of the preservation of the earth. God is ultimately in control of the earth. But at the end of the day, now does that mean that we have an excuse to just live however we want to, live disgustingly, and just disregard the people around us, the communities we live in, and just go on and litter and just degrade the community that we live in, right? And it's like, no, because we understand this is a gift, now we all the more go out and seek to look after it. And not only because we're looking after the earth, but that in a sense is a form of loving others, right? When Jesus was asked about what the greatest commandment is, Jesus responded, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as you love yourself." And so and then he went on to say, all the law and prophets hang on these two commandments, and that just stresses the importance of these commandments, right? And so if we go and we just live however we want to live, right, just disregarding the communities we live in, and just littering, and just all of those things, and not only that, but also not considering how our actions and behaviors affect even generations to come, because we live as if we don't know when Jesus is coming back. We live as if he's coming back, but we don't know when Jesus is coming back, and so we live as if he is coming back today. But there is a slight chance that he might not even come back in our generation, and so we need to think about the generations that come after us, and that they still need to live here, right? And so in a sense, if we're disrespecting and not kind of caring about our carbon footprint in that way, we're kind of not obeying those commandments, right? Because we don't only we don't go and destroy our surroundings and live disgusting lives and do whatever we want to. Why? It's because it's out of respect for the people in our community, and the people that live around us. And so because we love people and we respect people, so that we respect our environment and respect the place that we live in out of the love for people. And so that just ties in with that commandment, right? And if we were to just do whatever we want to and just live however we want to because we can, that's not loving others, right? I think the main problem starts to come in when we develop this kind of pride and this arrogance, as if we're in control of preserving the earth ultimately, and I think it's just about finding that balance between doing as much as you can with what you have, right? To each is their own, right? So I say to each their own because, like, look at Elon Musk, for instance. He's in a much greater position to do something like really impactful than I am. Like, I can look out for my surroundings, my community, and keeping it as and being a good steward of what I've been given, right? But then others, like to you, doing as best as you can could be something much bigger or something even less than I can do. And so we as individuals have this responsibility to kind of be good stewards of this gift that we've been given, this place that we get to live in, right? Because ultimately there will come a day when the heavens, the earth, and everything under the earth will be done away with, in a sense, to not in a sense, but to make room for the new heaven and the new earth. And so understanding that ultimately God is in control of the earth's preservation, but doing as much as we can to be respectful and to be loving to our community and our neighbors and the people that live around us, but then also balancing that with understanding, coming under and humbling ourselves and understanding that, hey, at the end of the day, God is the one that is ultimately in control of this, right? God is the one that is ultimately in control of that. And yeah, that's my answer. If you find value from this channel, and because our whole goal at this channel is to try and teach people how to read the scripture. We believe learning how to read the scripture is so important. What did the author intend? What did God intend? And not inserting our own kind of ideas and agendas into the scripture. And if you find value from this kind of content, please support us by leaving a like down below. We have a Patreon as well, where you can go and support us there. It's $5 a month. And also just leave a comment as to your opinion on this whole environmentalism issue. Anyway, love you. Enjoy your week.